This is just such an awesome trail bike now.
My name's Guy Kestevan. I've been a professional bike tester for nearly 25 years, and today I'm up on the moors on the brand new Whyte E-150S Bosch powered 29er trail bike.
So, there was a Whyte S150 last year, Whyte's first e-bike, which is what I reviewed at Winlatter. But this new 150 is a totally different bike. For a start, it gets 29er wheels in a slightly modified rear end, but travel drops down to 140 at the rear. So it's the fork that's 150, not the rear wheel travel. And what was the S150 becomes the S160. So 160mm fork and 27.5 inch wheels. And that's what Neil's riding today. But doing some geometry changes as well. So 64.7 degree head angle, 74.6 degree seat angle. So I'm having to sneak forward a little bit on the saddle, these steeper, more technical climbs. But the other big change is while the Bosch motor hasn't changed, they've uprated it by 10 Newton meters. So torque is now 85 Newton meters. And what really helps is on these little technical climbs, there's now much more run on. So even when you stop pedaling or you can't get a full pedal rev in, there's a surge of power just to get you over those little crux moves. And you don't have to worry about the BB height so much, because they brought it up 10mm and they've rerouted the cabling so it all goes over the top of the motor now, doesn't dangle underneath all precarious and vulnerable like, which is the big worry with last year's bike. And while the bottom bracket height is increased, it's 330mm now, you've still got a crazy low centre of gravity, because that Whyte design slides the battery right down in front of the motor casing, so it's way lower than most e-bikes. It's way lower than any e-bike as far as I know. So you've still got incredibly planted handling that just comes into its own when you're jinking through single track or sliding it sideways through a high-speed corner. Yeah, it's got all that Whyte optimised trail offset, fork geometry. So this Yari RC gets a short 42mm offset, and it's obviously a big sturdy 35mm stanchion fork with plenty of steering stiffness. And at 25 kilos, it's no lightweight. But then this is a proper full fat, full power e-bike. You know, 625 watt power tube battery, full Gen 4 Bosch motor. You know, it's not some lightweight limited range setup, but still flicks around pretty well, just because the centre of gravity, and because a lot of the original testing on this bike was done before Bosch even had the motor ready. So Sam and the other designers had to ride it with full weight but without any power assist. So they obviously wanted to make it as dynamic as possible in terms of how it felt on the trail. And that's also why it's got a really good pedalling kinematic. You know, they haven't gone super floppy with it. It still feels really positive when you get on the power. So just turning it over in tour, it's huge amounts of fun. You've also got a really good reliability rep for this motor, and the motor hasn't changed. They've just uprated the torque up from 875 to 85 now that they know it'll handle it. Right, I mean, this is actually a bit of climbing trail, and we're already getting to the top end of the speed limiter, tucked in behind Neil here. Neil's on the 160, 27.5 inch wheels, but you know, proper enduro rider that lad. He's meant to be racing in Italy this weekend, not, you know, leading out pensioners over the Yorkshire Moors. But that's the great thing about these bikes, they're such a leveler, and the old cliche is because they're so easy to ride and get extra runs in, that's precisely what you do. You do get more runs in, and you don't ride them any slower, so you just end up getting fitter. So it's just an upward cycle. And you know, typically for Whyte, you've got weatherproof lifetime bearings on the suspension, you've got that sealed seat clamp, keep the muck out there. The whole bike is designed to thrive, not just survive in UK conditions, and that's exactly what we're doing now. The fact it's not crazy long, it's 476mm reach on this large, means it's a little bit handier and more agile through slower speed sections like this. And of course, because you're on an e-bike, there's no drama, just dropping down to play silly buggers just for a little bit of descent and then come back up the takey climb just because you fancy a bit of a challenge. And there are two bikes in the range. This is actually the entry-level bike, so you're getting Shimano 12-speed Dior stop-and-go equipment, and then there's an RS model which comes with a Lyric Select Maxxis Assegai tyres and SRAM Eagle X01. Now I'm definitely freewheeling and flowing more on this 29 than Ryan is ahead on 27.5 180, just because of the bigger wheel size. But as you can see, still agile enough to hustle it through the S-bends. You know, and even though this is now the shortest travel bike in Whyte's e-bike range, there's still plenty of control and smoothness in there to push on through the bigger features. You know, even though the Yari on this S is obviously the simplest of the RockShox big travel forks, it's still, you know, impressively well controlled. It's not quite as plush and super sensitive in terms of damping as the Lyric you get on the RS, but it's the same seals, chassis, air spring, everything else. So, you know, if you did want to upgrade it, then all you need to do is fit that Charger damper in there. And as everybody knows, you know, 29er wheels add a bit more stability and smoothness, but the Kinematic on this Whyte is really impressive and settled anyway, so I can still push it pretty hard through these rocky sections confidently, and it's really accurate as well because of that big complete tube, down tube. Hasn't had the bottom sawn out of it or the top to stick a battery in. It's still a fully structural tube, which obviously makes the bike a lot stiffer. So, you know, it really can make the most of the accuracy of that Yari fork. I'm beyond the motor now. Like all e-bikes, it's limited to 25 kilometers an hour, but because there's zero drag, you can still get some cranking in, and that short, well, certainly for an e-bike, short rear end really helps the agility. So when you need to remember the hook around line onto the bridge, bang, in you go, no problem at all. It's just superbly weighted, this bike. And obviously, if you want even more agility, go for 27.5 inch wheels on the longer travel bikes. Yes, mate.
Very nice.
Full house. Wham.
Yeah, no wrong turn.
Whyte e-bike family. And again, just that little half pedal run on there, just gliding me up a section where I couldn't get these cranks around without risking tapping out. The poise through the bars and this steering is really, really impressive, because there's no weight kind of distorting it if you start to topple or wobble over, because the centre of gravity is so low, it just flicks and rebalances really easily. And Whyte have put a very light shock tune on the bike. Kind of a lot of e-bike manufacturers kind of go heavy because they're thinking, oh well, it's a lot more load, maybe I need to make it more stable. But because it pedals so efficiently anyway, they've stayed really light with the damper. So thanks very much, cheers. Yeah, the grip, the subtlety, the sensitivity, even this big Enduro casing WTB tyre at 28 psi is really, really good. No drama up there. Right, I'm not going to try and hold on to the bigger travel boys down here, but having said that, this bike just naturally carries speed really well, because you've got all that weight making the suspension that more sensitive, you know, boosting the unsprung to sprung weight ratio. So, you know, the whole bike just feels super grounded. The only trouble I'm finding is it kind of tends to shrink the speed you're going, because it feels so calm. So I'm getting to places faster than I'm used to. And while, you know, these 200mm rotors on these Dior brakes are doing their best, they're definitely seeing some heat today. Ride the Rutcast, come on. Right, this is the section I was a bit concerned about. There we go. We're through. Oh, this bike is just so good. It just doesn't feel like an e-bike. I mean, that's the big takeaway from this. You know, the centre of gravity is so well sorted. It's just got all the agility and responsiveness of a conventional bike on the descents and on single track, but with all that extra power when you need it. And it doesn't matter if you go all the way at the bottom, because, you know, coming back up again is lovely and easy. And these Verdict tyres have all the grip that you need for these loamy conditions. And of course, with any e-bike, but particularly one that handles as well as this, even the uphill sections become really fast, fun, flowing single track in a way that, you know, they're never going to be without a motor on your side. Yeah, I mean, these sections are doable, but in a totally different siege mentality, not a proper pop and play format. And that's another real take home on this bike, is how playful and poppy it is for an e-bike. Just so dynamic. And of course, because 29er wheels roll a bit smoother than 27.5s, even with these high grip Verdict tyres on, you get more range from the battery, and also it's easier on your legs propelling them along whatever speed you're going at. So, you know, it's better suited for extended trail use from that point of view as well. I thought I knew this more pretty well. I don't think I've ever done this section. Maybe I've done it at night and not even realised it, but you know, this bike just opens up whole new sections of riding.
So there you go. Whyte have taken an already benchmark bike, one of my favourite e-bikes, and made it smoother, faster, more efficient and better balanced for all-round riding, whether you're on the power or off it. And in this S spec, it's absolutely belting value, but for 500 quid more, you're getting a noticeably better bike. So either way, you're on to a winner, plus you still get the 160 and the 180 options. So massive thanks to Whyte for letting me try their demo bike today. Thanks to Neil for bringing it over to the moors. Thanks to them for supporting this video as well. And massive thanks, as always, to my Patreon supporters who give a small monthly pledge to the channel, and that gets them extended, early and behind the scenes edits, plus a higher level of tech and sort of shopping advice as well, if they want it. So if you like what I'm doing with the channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon by clicking on the link at the end. Thanks massively to these guys whose names have been screening up while I've been saying that. The only thing left to say is I've been Guy Kesteven on Guy Kes TV on Whyte's brand new E-150S.